Now let's venture forth to our Armor 2 course. Now I assume you already watched your Armor 1 course, all the basics of changing battery and such. So let's jump right into this. This is actually not very long, but there is some good detail here if you want to break apart the trigger module here. So let's go ahead. I've already removed the slide, as you should be familiar with from watching the Armors 1 course. I'm going to pop out the trigger pin, remove this trigger, okay? Take this little rubber band, remove those wires, remove the rear part, okay? And boom, I get this trigger module removed. All right, so let's jump through a few things. Let's go ahead now. If you already done your diagnostics section, you figured out what you need. Here's some of the few main components. You may need a new positive mainspring. You may need some of the trigger mainsprings, or you may need a new SIRT, okay? So I'll just jump through. If your mainspring is broken right here, all right, go ahead and pry this guy out. Use a little screwdriver, all right? You can just remove this guy from the frame, as so. It's a little sticky pad on the bottom, and you'll probably find that right here is bent or busted, okay? In which case, just go ahead and take this guy, your new one. The fat end goes towards the battery. All right, and you can just basically get it lined up in the slot and push straight down like so, and it should just have a nice frictional fit in there, okay? All right, now what you will have to do on that, and it will probably already come, is bent up a little bit. This guy will be bent up, so you do want to make sure that the positive side engages the battery, okay? But you shouldn't have to touch this part at all. It should be ready to go as such. So that is replacing the positive contacts. Now, the next layer of diagnostics is if you figured out there was something wrong with your trigger module. Let's go ahead and break open the trigger module. Let's get our 2.5 millimeter hex wrench. And we're going to take this guy and just unscrew it. All right. Now, this part's a little bit tricky. To remove this, I like to kind of get my thumbs right here and just kind of pry apart a little bit. Get my fingers right here, pry apart. All right, and nothing's going to explode on you, okay? Like those loaded springs where it goes flying everywhere. Nothing should explode on you. So you pop it off, and now we've got a pretty good little visual here of the main components. So this is actually a healthy module, nothing wrong with it. But you can see here's the SIRT. There's a little magic with the SIRT. Here are the mainsprings right here, all right, which the trigger presses against. This is the contact switch up here. It's a very simple mechanical switch to turn on and off the take-up laser. So one thing that could go haywire on you is, let's assume that as you press this guy back, the SIRT member, it goes back easy. Well, that might have broken up in here in this area of the SIRT. So to replace that, what we'll do is let's take a little wrench. All right, this one is healthy, but I will replace it. Boom, okay. And this guy is replaced with a new member. And as you get new ones, you're going to notice that we send them out with this little rubber insert guy right here, okay? So this little rubber insert is interposed between this spring leg and the mainspring. Okay, so to replace this, you will have to note that this spring goes on this side of the cam, like so. All right, so it's going to be on this side, and then this is on the other side of the upper cam. So to get this on, what I like to do is just kind of get this top part on first a little bit, kind of get that on, and then keep this bottom leg, just kind of like kick it over this bottom part like that, all right? And then you really got to kind of pinch and finesse it down over, just kind of squeeze, twist, torque a little bit, and eventually go ahead and slide it down. So you'll note that the spring leg is on this side of that adjustment cam, and this kick leg down here is on this side, all right, the forward side. Now, if you got a new kit, we do have a piece of rubber that is interposed between these springs. We have found this to help out, give a little bit of kick on the spring, and really extend the spring life. It'll actually stay there really, really nicely. So your final assembly should look like that. Key points to note is that this leg is on this side of this cam, this one's on this side of that cam, the inside, this is around the top. Yeah, and that looks good. So the other replacement you may have to do are these mainsprings. Now with these mainsprings right here, go ahead and remove the broken ones if indeed they did break. All right. Now we have 3 mainsprings on these. So go ahead and get the new mainsprings, which actually there are some mainsprings that come in your kit, all right, in your original SIRT, but we can always send them to you. Now make sure the top portion here is bent back. They're little hook portions, and they're adapted to hook on this portion of right up here of the trigger housing. So the way this looks like, this is nice to have a little bit of a wrench to hold them together on the upper part, kind of like that. Go ahead and so you want to just kind of grab them and just with your fingers just kind of push them like so, all right? First thing I like to do is get them hooked up on the top here like that. So even if you don't have the trigger there initially, just kind of finesse them up and back, grab high on it, grab a little bit high on them, go up and back, and then go down like that. All right, so you kind of push it down. You'll note that they pop down in the housing like so. This should be recessed a little bit. So I'll put it like so and then push it forward. So this boss on the other side engages that hole. So now I have the boss in the hole, all right, this circular cylindrical member. Okay, boom. So let's inspect it a little bit. You can kind of, it's not really fully supported, but you can kind of pull the trigger down, test it, make sure it's all there and good and engaged. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so when you put the switch in, go ahead and take the long part of the switch and put it in through the hole, all right? Okay, so the long part extends through. Then go ahead, now this part's a little bit tricky because you kind of got a lot of pieces here to line up. So go ahead and what I kind of do is just kind of get it, and just kind of keep real loose fingers and it'll come together, but it might get caught up on one of the little surfaces that are sitting proud and such, all right? So before you put the screw back on, go ahead and test it, all right? As we noted in the diagnostics section, if I had trouble returning, it was probably a mainspring. If it wasn't breaking, it was probably a SIRT spring. Okay, that looks good. At this point, I will just quickly put this screw back on. And if you forget to put this screw back in, it's not the end of the world because it actually lives really well without it anyways, but it only makes sense to have a screw to kind of keep her together. Good, it's a beautiful little trigger module there. So now I just will reassemble this as I have when I reassemble the battery and such, as you can see in the other videos. So really that is the main thing you have to do with the trigger module. Again, I just want to note the only thing you really want to make sure you do when you reassemble that you don't screw up that guy right there of the positive contact, all right? You want to make sure you don't, the trigger doesn't hit it and you bend it back again. So just be kind of gentle, kind of work it in there. Now what you do want to do when you put it back in is when you pull back, take a peek underneath here and make sure that, you can even help to put the pin in to make sure it's centered just right. Make sure that this positive contact, you can look right underneath here, make sure that positive contact when you prep it back is touching that little base of the trigger in there. Now I went ahead and took this model and I removed the trigger guard and I actually even cut off the trigger, all right, so we can look right in there and look at what I'm talking about here with this positive contact spring and the trigger, okay? So if I pull this trigger back, and I got this little stubby guy, I'm gonna pull back for you. Now as I pull this trigger back, like so, see how I pull it back before I bottom out and go to the full take up, all right, it is hitting that positive contact. That's what we want, okay? We want, because that's the actual electrical conduction to go from there to the trigger, from the trigger tongue, that internal extended member, to the sear, right, to show that take up, okay? Now, if that guy is not contacting, all right, and you pull your trigger back and you take a little toothpick or something in there and you can press and, you know, and make contact, what you'll have to do is go ahead and remove your trigger, all right, from your SIRT, and go ahead and what you can do right then is just do a little bit of a bend, all right? So very, very gentle bend upwards, okay? And sometimes you just kind of tilt the whole member, and then you're going to be in a better position for that to engage this guy right here, this little tab. The other thing to note for, in case if something got in there, like a leaf or some piece of debris, or if maybe a piece of the flashing or the plastic is sitting a little bit proud, you could just kind of pry away that area. Of course, you're not going to have a stubby trigger, right? You'll have a full trigger, and get that metallic surface cleaned up. Okay, so I'll put this little model in. We do want, this is an issue right there. See how I'm hitting that? I want to make sure I have a little finesse there so I don't hit that member. And boom. Okay, fit it in, pop the pin in, test it, and you will diagnose if you have an issue with contact between your positive mainspring and your trigger. One other quick side topic on Advanced Armor course is the magazine. What can happen with the magazine, with some of the older magazines, we have made some changes lately, some improvements, that this front edge right here will actually wear out, okay? So if this lip is worn, the magazine may have to be replaced. But what you can do is just take a knife and just cut straight down, like a straight down cut, okay, to give it a sharper edge again. So really, this one's not worn really, but I'll just pretend it is for this case. So really what this looks like, if this was like kind of worn and raggedy and rounded, so it's no longer holding a hard edge, you know, you can just kind of take it just a little bit. Don't take too much, you know, just take a little bit like that, kind of press down, cut it off to a nice clean, you know, sear edge almost, so to speak, and, you know, pry it away. And I'll give you a little bit more life your magazines before you have to replace them. I will say, you know, if you have some older magazines, we have made some improvements, deepening that out, sharpening that edge, and even some material adjustments to keep it still soft, tough, but you know, robust enough to handle that wear and tear. So that's another quick little thing you can do regarding your magazines. Now let's talk a little bit about the laser module and diagnosing the laser module. You know, the lasers are pretty high quality lasers. We do not get many failures on them. We have a very rigorous testing protocol, 100% testing before they go out. But what is a common issue with the laser housing, not common, but out of the issues we have, which are rare with the laser housing, the most common issue is the return spring. So if you take a look in these areas, you can actually take a look where the adjustment screws go, okay, within the housing. And then opposing these adjustment screws, there is a spring member, all right, that's embedded in the housing, okay? And this spring member, which you can see, the lighting, is right here, okay? That pushes the laser against this set screw and this set screw, all right? So it's pushing it in both directions. On occasion, this is acetyl spring, all right, can break some impact or who knows what, okay? If you notice that this spring right here is broken, then we need to replace this housing. And that's something you have to send back to us. And the easiest thing is, you send us this, we'll send you another housing and we'll make you whole there. On some occasion, the lasers somehow retreat back away from this front housing. And if you look in the front portion here, you can see where the diodes are, all right? The glass, the plastic or glass. If that's somehow recessed back and these lasers pulled back, what you've got to do is push them back forward and push them towards this housing. This doesn't happen that often, but it might not be possible to do so. What you can have to do is remove this front housing a little bit, all right? You can take a little knife or what have you, just kind of pry it apart. And I'll do it for you right now so you can see. We want to make sure is that these lasers are embedded up in that housing. Because you can imagine if they fall out and they're off, they're not going to point even close to the right direction. They'll never be adjustable. So yeah, that's a rare thing, but if you do have that issue, what you can do is remove this out a little bit, take the laser and just kind of push it and pry it in these areas here just to get it, you know, seated in that hole, and then push it forward even just with your finger or fingernail, okay? And make it, boom, kind of seat in there, snug, and then you just push this guy back and it should just pop right back in the front cap, like so, okay? And you're ready to roll again. All right, it's like so. So those are really the basics with the housing. Other than that, if you had a broken, somehow you broke a solder or something like that, you can fix it if you want to solder it, if you're skilled at that, or, of course, send it to us. And of course, we want to take care of you. So that's really some of the basics and fundamentals on the advanced armor course. Again, it's short, nothing too major there. But if you have any issues, please call us, call customer service. We want to make sure that you're up and running with your SIRT and getting some good training in.